So my next question comes from the famous Ken Ham Bill Nye debate, which was a great watch. I think I've watched it probably 3 times at this point. And it's potentially a question that I should have asked Dr. Snelling because we were focused on the flood, and this may have a bit more to do with the flood. But in the debate, Bill Nye brought up things that outaged the flood, things like trees that were 9,000 years old. I've heard the pyramids are 10,000 years old. What would you say about these things that are dated previous to this catastrophic flood?
Well, A, you got to be very careful about the dating methods. The dating method's been shown to be wrong left, right, and center. In fact, when you start using different radiometric dating methods, you've got a lot of assumptions involved in it. I don't know if Dr. Snelling talked about some of that, but initial amounts, how is the rate decayed? Was there any mother or daughter elements that were added or taken away? That skews those things left, right, and center. So whenever you're using dating methods like the pyramids, some people want to say, oh, they're 10,000 years old. Well, there's a problem with it. First off, Egypt itself, the name Egypt, Egyptus, that's the Greek name for Noah's grandson, Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, every time you see Egypt in the Old Testament, it's the name Mitzrayim. It's actually one of Noah's grandsons. So none of those pyramids were built prior to Mitzrayim being born, which is post-flood. So it goes to show the dating methods are not there. And if there's a global flood, I mean, those things would have been absolutely obliterated. But at the same time, if you look at those pyramids, what they're sitting on top of is massive amounts of flood sediment. So they're clearly a post-flood creation. So you got to be careful of the dates like that, particularly with the pyramids. Another thing, and I know Bill Nye brought this one up, was the tree rings. Particularly bristlecone pines are one of them that people try to bring up because if you go in there, you see the rings on these things. You could tally them up. I mean, you can get 8,000 rings in there. And so people automatically assume those are yearly rings. But there's a huge problem with that. If you know a lot about trees, trees have growth. They grow and they stop growing. They grow, they stop growing. That's where those rings come from. So it's not necessarily a yearly ring. It is a growth ring. And people have been able to go into a laboratory with these bristlecone pines, water it for 2 weeks, then simulate a drought for 2 weeks, water it again, you get a new ring. You can get a multitude of rings in 1 year. In fact, these bristlecone pines that people want to argue are older than, say, 6,000 years old, they're in these areas where it's really dry, where it grows every time it gets a rain. And so, that's the problem. You get multiple rings per year. And, sometimes you also have to be careful of people taking the rings and they want to add it to another tree, and so forth. And you have to be very careful of that because you can look at the same tree on 2 different sides of the tree. Some of the rings are very compact together and these are over here. You would never match those 2 up, but it's the same ring just on the other side of the tree. So there's a lot of arbitrary finagling to get these things to try to add up. So once again, you got to be careful of the assumptions behind that. I don't know if you realize, but I actually wrote a book about the Ken Ham Bill Nye debate. It's called Inside the Nye Ham Debate. I go through the entire debate point by point, and I deal with that. The entire transcript is in there as well. And so if somebody wants to find that, that's the details there. And the reason that I was selected to do that, Bill Nye and I share the same degree, but I'm actually 1 level higher than he is. And at the end of the debate, I actually got a chance to meet Bill, and I asked him to sign a Bible. So he opened it up and he signed it real big, Bill Nye, the science guy, and he put an arrow to the contents of the Bible and said, question everything. So I had his written permission to question everything he said in the debate, and I really did. So.
That's great.